Welcome back, Source Nation, to Power Over Tomorrow. Yes, yes, yes. That was some nice words. Let me show you the way to go by the Jacksons. I wasn't the Jackson 5 by that time, but either way, I still remember the song. And the words like, let me show you the way to go and never let you down. That's what an educator would do. That's what someone who's an activist, an advocate for your side will do. They will show you the way to go. They will never let you down, and they are there to help empower you, to build you not only within yourself but within the community. Yes, and there are people who have gone on before us. You know, scriptures say that run the race that has been set before you. Let go of the weight that easily besets you and run before that great cloud of witnesses. Yes, Source Nation, you've heard me say it one time before, is that within one generation, my family went from picking cotton in the fields to picking stocks on the market, from sharecroppers to shareholders. The American dream is what you make it. And oftentimes people ask me, well, Brother Mitchell, well, you being born and raised in New York, well, how do you know about picking cotton? Well, you see, I look at it like this. While I may never pick cotton, I do know the good cotton picker. And Source Nation, this show is going to that number one listener. So, but while we're talking about those who have gone the way and who are educating us and being an activist and an advocate for us, I would be remiss if I don't let you know about our guest that's in the studio today. My brother James Clingman, that's right, the author of Black Dollars Matter, Teach Your Dollars How to Make More Sense, and not only is he an advocate, but he's an expert. Hear me out now. An expert on economic empowerment. While his focus has been on the black community, you will see that it works in any community. But that's enough of me talking. I want you to hear some words from my friend Jim. Jim, is your headset ready for you?
Yes, sir. How are you, Tyrone?
Hey, man, I'm doing fine. And once again, I want to thank you so much for allowing us to be able to tap into your wealth of knowledge and spending some time with us on this day to kick off 2016, the first show of our new year, but hopefully not the last. So, Jim, so how you been?
I've been doing pretty well. Had good holiday season, and we're back in the grind now. Still writing my article every week, and just doing my usual advocating, promoting economic empowerment. And first, let me give you my condolences. I know you posted what took place. So I just want to let you know that we're here for you, bruh, and we're praying for you and your family.
Hey, listen, man, I appreciate it. You know, Jim, our show today is 70, the new 65. And I came across a few articles about that, and it caught my attention. It's 70, the new 65, meaning that, there was a time where companies provided you an opportunity to work with them 25, 30, sometimes 40 years. And when you left, not only did you have a gold watch, but you also had what was called a pension plan. And
right.
And the pension plan was to help was the foundation of your lifestyle once you stopped working. And then we also had Social Security that was enacted back in 1935, and the pressure for our financial future was not necessarily on the individual, because folks typically relied upon the government and also their employer for their financial future. They just had to manage the money wisely. But things have changed. People, when Social Security first came out back in 1935, it was because the life expectancy for people back then was basically around 60, maybe 65. And folks would retire and then collect their Social Security and pension just for a few years. But now people are living to 70, 80, 90. You know, I think my great aunt a few months back in the summer lived to be, I think, 90, 93. So that's a lot of collection on Social Security for the administration.
That's right.
So, but when we say is 70 the new 65, I guess the question that's being proposed is, do you see it being the new 65, where people may have to work longer just to receive the type of benefit that used to come to people that were there before them?
Absolutely. I would even go as far as to say that 70 is the new 60, or maybe even 55. And for several reasons, one of which is that we're in better health than we were back then. And like you said, we're living longer. And we are, a lot of us, still working, required to work because of our circumstances. And God blessed us to be able to do that, of course. But, you know, I would agree with that statement. There are a lot of implications for Social Security now. We're hearing more and more about what the changes, you know, certain folks are trying to propose what they are. Now that we're in the political election year, we're going to hear more and more about raising the age, doing means testing. All kinds of things are going to be talked about, at least politically, when it comes to the Social Security program that we're familiar with and have been, like you said, since 1935. So, yes, I agree with that statement, and we may as well look at it in realistic terms and prepare for it.
Yeah. Now, Jim, you said you mentioned some means testing. I've heard that once before. Would you mind elaborating on what means testing is for our listening audience?
Well, it's simply looking at how much money people make, and if they make over a certain amount. You know, there are millionaires who draw Social Security, and it's looking at, you know, what are the what levels will be recommended to where people will not be cut off necessarily, but receive a lower amount, or be able to just simply say, you know, I'll opt out because I'm okay. Folks are looking at all ways of reducing the obligation of Social Security because of, you know, people are living longer, like you said. Yeah. So everything's on the table.
I see. You know, we say that everything's on the table for us, but we oftentimes find that government and big businesses are hiding a lot of stuff under the table.
You got that right. You got that right.
You know, you think you got one thing and you get another. I remember back in the, I would say about the mid to late 80s, when we started hearing this term that was coming around called downsizing. And downsizing, we said, what was that? You know, it used to be a time where people got fired or they got laid off. And then then they changed it to downsize. You know, so all it was doing, you was using, it was the same. The results were the same, but they just changed the name. You know, we say
the name just changed. You're right.
You know, the game is still the same, but they just changed the name. And what it was is that, well, people were being forced out, and they were losing their pension plans and everything else. And what comes to mind was on Long Island, there was Grumman Aeronautics, and many of the listeners may be familiar with Grumman's because they used to make the Tomcat fighter jets.
Right.
That the United States had a lot of, you know, military contracts. Well, I remember many people would retire from there, and when they started looking at their bottom line, they started changing the benefits that the retirees were receiving. And it was a big uproar because folks were fighting and saying, listen, we had a contract with you, but somewhere in that contract, they stipulated that if they needed to, they could make those changes. So when we talk about what we want to do here on Power Over Tomorrow is educate people and look at the fact of changes. You can't truly sit back. You can't sit back and wonder what's happening, because if you do, you're going to miss out. And
that's right.
If we are, and if we are seeing that we are living longer and we're needing more money, we need to begin to start talking about where's the economic power. Do you agree with that, Jim?
Yes. And when you talked about the late 80s, the mid to late 80s, and the early 90s, matter of fact, throughout the 90s, a lot of people were being downsized. I worked as a consultant back then for AT&T, and I did training and classes for people who were being downsized. And that contract lasted for 11 years, which shows you how many people, 11 years. And we did about 5 states. It wasn't national. And what our charge was to go in and do assessments and, just counsel people on how to transfer their skills. Many of them having been at AT&T for 30 years, right out of high school. And they were operators. You haven't heard that word in a long time. But that was part of what went down back then, and we should look back and learn from those lessons. Those people came out with money, significant amounts of money, but if they didn't use their money, which is part of what we taught them, use this money to get yourself into an entrepreneurial venture or some other self-sustaining kind of initiative, so that you won't just sit back and look around 5-6 years from now and have nothing. So that's a very good example that you brought up, that period of time where AT&T and many other companies, IBM, were laying off people by the tens of thousands. And we could certainly learn from that.
Yeah. And many times when they say we are just downsizing, the terminology that they would use would be, we're just doing this for a period of time. And, it's a process. We are restructuring the company. Well,
right.
You know what typically happens when they go through that restructuring? They say, hey, we can operate pretty good with the skeleton crew. Why do we need to hire anybody else? And
that's right. And
they began to shift that weight back on the people.
That's right. The number of employees went down, but productivity went up, which meant what you just said, more people working more hours, doing more work, at a much lower rate of employees at these major companies. Look at what happened to HP now that we're in the presidential election year with Carly Fiorina. The CEOs were laying people off and they're giving themselves millions of dollars in raises. And that's just something that, we can whine about it now, but we need to just look back on it, learn from it, and adjust ourselves and our behavior to accommodate that possibility now.
Yeah, because I once read that the millennials, those are, how does it go? Those are born in 2000, actually those who came of age around the mid-20s or so in about 2000, 2010. That group finds themselves, it was written that they will have a minimum of 16 jobs.
That's right.
Before they retire.
And 3 careers.
All those, they will have all of that before they stop working. And and along with that, in that same parallel scope, you have companies looking at things as a pension. And we typically know what a pension is. It's a set amount of money you receive for your longevity with the company. They pay it to you as a way to replace the income that you was making. Well, if you're going to have 16 jobs before you finally retire, how much are you really going to build with those companies?
Right. That's right.
And along with that, you're talking about the fact that they are dismantling. Many of the corporations now say they call pension plans what they call it the old dinosaur. And you know what happened with old dinosaurs, right? They go extinct.
Yeah. Extinct.
And so where does that leave our people? We think we're going to retire at 65. Have you gone to the local grocery store lately? All right.
Right.
I mean, have you even gone to the local Foot Locker? You see a lot of folks who are once retired coming back to work.
That's
because
right.
if they could have worked to age 70, many of them would have. So, we see this vanishing act coming, but how do we really have to prepare? And one question that I will ask you, Brother Jim, is that, the statistics you and I are getting right now is typically on a national level. But when we funnel that down, fine tune it to within the black community, does 70 being the new 65 or the new 60, does it really come into play within the black community?
Oh, yes. You can see, I know people right now who had to go back to work, who were working well into their 70s with no idea or no thought of quitting or retiring. And as that happens, if you look at it, it pushes out the younger people who want to take those entry-level jobs because many of the elderly people are taking them, and they're more reliable. They don't have the high maintenance as young people do. So that's causing a counter effect on the employment for young folks. The other aspect of it is that these pension plans, people may have them, but if you think about it, a lot of companies are offering buyouts or offering lump sum payments of those pension plans now. And people need to be aware of what to do if they get a letter saying your pension amount is this. We're offering within the next 30 days a lump sum payout if you want to take it. Well, what are the implications of that? If you don't know, you need to talk to somebody like Tyrone Mitchell, or someone who can advise you on whether to take it, a lump sum, what the implications of that are, roll it over to your own personal IRA, or leave it in the pension plan. Understanding if it's an annuity, for instance, it's not going to change. It's you're always going to get the same amount. But on the other side, if you invest it or put it in an IRA, it may give you more per month. So those are the things that I recommend. And I'm not a financial planner, but I recommend to, as I do my lectures, you need to know somebody who is a financial planner and work with them and let them do your financial planning, and so you can be advised as to what to do with these developments that may come from retirement and pensions and everything else that we're faced with. There's a lot of stuff going on, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can lose your shirt and much more than that if you don't have someone who can give you, good advice.
That's right. When we think about those buyouts and those options, typically when the money is sitting with the company is basically responsible for handling the money.
There you go.
As far as managing it. All right. They're not going to tell you where to invest, but they're responsible, according to the Department of Labor, to manage it properly. So not only for you, but for your beneficiaries.
Mm-hmm.
So when they are offering these buyouts and these lump sum payouts, once again, what are they doing? They're looking at their bottom line, because if they have to manage something, there's an added expense.
That's
so
right.
They offer you these buyouts, these lump sum payments, and then you get the money, And this was another thing that we learned during that downsizing phase from the 80s and 90s, is that they changed the laws on how you receive your money. What was happening back then was that folks were getting this money and then saying they would roll it over in 60 days. Well, because they couldn't find another job, or they realized they lived above their means, they spent the money, never rolled it over.
Yep.
And then what did the IRS say? Hey, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah.
If you take that money, they said they got hip. They said, wait a minute, we're not getting our tax money. Right? They said, this is what we're going to do. If you take that money paid to Jim or paid to Tyrone, we're going to take out 20% right off the top.
That's right, off the top.
You get that 20% when you pay your taxes.
Yeah.
So now,
and a 10% penalty if you take it out too early.
If you take it out too early.
Yeah.
So they're telling you you're going to live longer. We're cutting back on Social Security, but you can take your money. But when you take your money, we're going to hit you with some taxes and some penalties. And then that's where folks were saying, I thought it was my money. Well, that's where the education comes in. All right.
Yeah, and one good example where a lot of our people work are in hospitals. And more hospitals are going private. They're not public anymore, so their pension plans change. So that's why my wife worked at a hospital in Ohio for about 14 years, and she got the letter. But they're doing it. I told her they're doing this to wipe off the long-term debt off their books. It's always about the bottom line. They want to give you a lump sum. And, we just had to sit down and make the right decision about taking it, which we did. But that's why a lot of these companies are doing that. They're just clearing their books of long-term debt.
Source Nation, you are listening to Power Over Tomorrow. We're live with Brother James Clingman, activist, educator, economic expert for not just black community, but for all communities. You can give us a call. We're at 619-924-0933. Again, 619-924-0933. Press option 1, and you'll be live with us if you have a question for Jim or if you just have a comment in regards to the question of the day. Is 70 the new 65? Well, Jim, you did mention something. You said, we see areas such as hospitals, they become privatized. What we have to recognize, or I should say, what we have to share with people is that when companies become privatized, it's about profit.
Yeah.
And it's about making money, especially when they are on the stock exchange. One example I gave just recently. There's a clothing store called Men's Warehouse. I don't know if you heard about that.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I forgot the owner's name, but he was the face of the company. The gentleman would come on and he would talk about the clothes, and he says, "I'm not just a customer, I'm the owner," or to that nature.
Right.
And then Men's Warehouse went public. They had an initial public offering. They became a stock company. So what they end up having to do, they have to assign themselves a board of directors. Well, needless to say, the board of directors eventually wanted to move the company into another direction, and guess what? They fired him.
That's right. You don't see him anymore.
He built the company up, but because he was not under his control, it was not profitable enough. They had to let him go. They kicked him out. It was all because they're looking at the profit. So when we talk about these the understanding that we are living longer, we may have to work more just to be able to retain or be able to break even with someone who was able to retire at 65 is happening now. So the question, 70, the new 65, this is not a futuristic question. This is happening now.
That's right.
But unfortunately, too many people think, all right, I'll just work to age 65, collect my Social Security, and we'll be good to go.
Right.
But when
yeah,
we get to
Social
65,
Security is, I mean, if that's all a person has, and not ever getting, well, not ever, but seldom getting a cost of living increase, which is really low in the first place, how are you going to keep up? I mean, the cost of living increase is below the amount of inflation. So
yes, it is. And
that's all we're depending on, and a lot of people are. It's going to be a rough ride.
Yeah. And you know when the rough ride starts? It started January 1st because this year, 2016, is the first year in I think about 10 years where there is not going to be a cost of living increase from Social Security.
Yeah, right.
And the funny thing about it is they don't base it on the cost of medication. They don't base it on the cost of groceries. You know what they base it on? The cost of petroleum, crude oil. Now, we all sit back and say we are enjoying the fact that gas is at a low cost. You know, we was close to $5 in some areas and even more. Now the average on the nationwide is what? I think $2.25. So we're happy that
it's down. Yeah,
it's down. But what they look at is say, crude oil is down, so therefore we don't give a cost of living increase. Now that drives the wedge between folks who need the increase and folks who want to keep gas prices down. And,
that's right.
You know, so we have to.
And I was really amazed. Not amazed, but you know, when I saw it on the news the other night, how the cost of living was tied to the price of oil. I said, why not the price of food? I mean, older people don't drive as much anymore anyway. So why should their payout be tied to oil prices? So they won't have to give them anything.
You know, they tie it to the wrong place because we have to be wiser. And I think you mentioned this and you brought it to our attention during the last time you visited our program, is that we just can't be economically smart. We have to be politically smart.
That's right.
Politics and finance go hand in hand. Oftentimes, the rules in politics go where the money is, and oftentimes the money will be where the political clout is. So they go hand in hand. So when we're talking about this aspect of them tying it to the wrong reason, we could be safe to say that somebody was asleep at the voting polls and didn't vote when they were supposed to because somebody slipped this under the table, like we talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to be aware, that's for sure, and just stay on top of this kind of information. And, of course, some people think, that's boring, I don't have time, you know, but you'll have time. You'll have more time than money in a lot of cases if you don't pay attention to what's going on and adjust to it prior to the time that it's a crisis.
Mm-hmm. You know, so that's what you may end up having more time than money. And, you know, that's what we say.
More month than money, as they say.
More month than money. That's like too much month at the end of your money. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all know what that means, too. You know, you get to January 15th, and you say, "Oh man, when's that next check coming in?"
That's right. Then you go to one of those rip-off companies that'll give you a loan for 300%.
That's right. The title loans and the payday lenders. You know, that's another. As a matter of fact, we didn't talk about that, but we're gonna bring that show back again too, because as we go through this process, and you know, we are now in the tax season, and during this tax season, you're going to start seeing the same thing. Bring your tax money here. Buy this car. Buy this and buy that.
That's right.
No one's ever saying take that tax money and save it.
Yep.
You know, when I was growing up, Jim, you know, it was people in your generation, my mother's, you know, because you're in the generation with my mother and father, is that you would always say, save money for a rainy day. Save money for a rainy day. But sometimes many of us we were never told what rain really is. You know, we see a little mist on the grass. We think that's rain. Okay, let's just take that money. Okay, you know, there's a difference between rain and dew. Okay,
right.
You know? And then even
right.
with the rain, you know, even with the rain, some rain may be a light rain, some rain may be a mixture of things, and then sometimes it may be an all-out hurricane.
Yeah.
But you got to know you got to know the severity of your situation. And
that's right. You bring up a real important point about tax refunds. People out there right now rubbing their hands together in anticipation of getting you to come and spend your refund. A lot of us look at that refund as like, found money. But it's your money all along.
That's right.
I mean, it's not like it's new money. You earned it. And they held it for a year with no interest.
That's right. With no interest.
And they're just giving it back to you. So why should you run out and take it and fall for all these tax refund sales?
Yeah. Well, I say this, Jim. I don't think our listeners are going to do that because our listeners are sound listeners. And the reason why they turn in is because they understand good financial stewardship. And you and I mentioned this before, that we talk about the gospel of financial stewardship. And what do we mean by that? Well, the gospel is the good news. And the good news is that you can be sound with what you're blessed with. It doesn't take $1 million to be sound. As long as you understand how to handle that little bit that you've been blessed with, God will give you the increase. Yeah. You know, well, Jim, I want to say this, buddy. Oh man, time goes by too fast when we talk. I tell you, I'm going to have to hold you on the line and talk to you after the show because you and I got a lot more to talk about.
Anytime, bro.
You know, but for our listeners, Jim, we know you got your books out there. I think you have another book, or you're writing another one. Is that correct?
Not writing one right now.
Okay.
Just the last one that you mentioned. That's the one that's out now.
Okay. You know what I'm thinking of? Your articles and your very thought-provoking posts on Facebook. So if you don't mind, let folks know how they can reach out to you for your book on Facebook, and just reach out, because what I always say is this, is if we have enough people like yourself, me, and others out there professing the right way to have power over tomorrow with their with their finances, their family, and their future, eventually folks will begin to be turned in the right direction. So let them know how they can reach out to you, Jim.
Well, the best way is to go to my website, blackonomics.com. You can buy the book